Today, we are going to answer the following question. Can you beat Fallout 3 without breaking the 10 commandments? Let's go through the commandments that we need to abide by. Number 1. You shall have no other gods before me. Number 2. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. Number 3. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Number 4. Remember the Sabbath day, and keep it holy. Number 5. Honour your father and mother. Number 6. Thou shalt not murder. Number 7. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Number 8. Thou shalt not steal. Number 9. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And number 10. You shall not covet. As always, I'm now going to translate these into some rules we need to follow, which will have the main rules that are mandatory for the challenge to be successful, and some bonus rules that are optional. Some of the commandments are missing because they are impossible to break, and will be successfully followed in this challenge no matter what we do. First, the mandatory rules. Rule number 1. Don't be positively affected by anything linked to a false god. This means if our character worships any idols, or benefits in any way from gods other than the one that we believe in, then this rule is broken. Rule number 2. Don't say the Lord's name in vain. This means that we can't say names such as Jesus or God as an expletive. Rule number 3. Rest for 24 hours on a Saturday. This should be pretty self-explanatory. Rule number 4. Do not say anything that dishonours your father or mother. Rule number 5. Don't murder. Rule number 6. Don't sleep with a married person, or sleep with someone while we're married. Rule number 7, don't steal by the game's logic. This means that if the game marks anything as stolen, then we break this rule. And lastly, rule number 8, don't lie. Now for the bonus rules. Rule number 1 is don't kill, and this is not just limited to people, but also animals or any other creatures. Basically anything that moves. And number 2 is don't steal by real-life logic. This means that we are not just assessing as to whether we're stealing by the game's logic, but if we take something that isn't explicitly marked as stealing, but would be considered stealing in a real-life scenario, then we break this rule. Now, without further ado, let's start our adventure. I start the run by once again calling our character Christian. When picking my special, I pick 1 for strength, 1 for perception, 10 for endurance, 10 for charisma, 10 for intelligence, 7 for agility, and lastly 1 for luck. Because why would we need luck when we have Jesus? We go through the tutorial section as normal. However, once our character reaches 10 years old, we are given a BB gun and are forced to kill a Radroach. There is nothing you can do to avoid this, because the quest refuses to let you progress otherwise. Even if you shoot all the ammo away, you are just given more. So for now, I have no choice but to kill the Radroach. This means that we break the no killing bonus rule for animals, and we have already failed the bonus challenge. For now. I do plan on revisiting this part once I escape, because I want to test whether load warping works in this game. Load warping is a trick in most Bethesda games where you can teleport a character from one save to the location of the character from another save. I might be able to use this trick to bypass this section once I am at a certain point. I then make my way to Megaton, but when I arrive, unfortunately, after trying the load warp trick, for some reason, it doesn't work. This is despite the fact that it works in both older games and newer games. Even if it did work, there was unfortunately no doors that I could use to get out from the inside, and I would only be able to travel back inside from the outside, which is of no use to me. Thankfully, I then discovered that our boy Yumfer has found a saving grace for us. At first, Yumfer manages to escape playing as a 10-year-old kid by clipping through the door, but he later discovers that it's not possible to beat the game as the kid, because they can't interact with any levers or any other objects. So in the end, what he had to do was escape as a baby at the very start of the game. It is here that we have to learn from Matthew chapter 18 verse 3. I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. In the end, I managed to do this as well. I did this at the very start of the game by waiting for the father to return, shutting the door behind him the moment he comes through the door, and then going through 2 doors, the second one glitching me out of the map and teleporting to a section that triggers the escape part of the mission. I also overcame a dilemma where I had to take the Overseer key, that I couldn't simply borrow because it's a quest item, and I can't drop it once I take it. So instead, I found a place where I can take a bobby pin, use it to quickly unlock the door, and put it back. I then hack the terminal and escape, and with that, we successfully complete the tutorial without having to kill the Radroach, and the bonus challenge still stands for now. We then have a problem where we need to find a way to rest on the Sabbath day. In the end, I successfully managed to disarm a bomb in Megaton, so that I am then given my own property, and I rest in the bed there. Now it's at this point I decide how I'm going to approach this run. In Yumfa's run, he manages to beat the game very quickly after starting by just performing a glitch. So if you want the shorter answer as to whether it's possible to beat this game without breaking the 10 commandments, the answer is technically yes, but it'll just be identical to Yumfa's run. I felt like doing this would make the run very boring, so I decided that, with the exception of the glitch I just performed, I'm going to beat the rest of the game the intended way by doing all of the missions it wants me to do. That said, I am at least able to skip a large portion of the game by just going straight to where the father is located at Vault 112. I do not consider this a glitch, because I don't perform any kind of trick or exploit to get to the location, and it seems like an intentional thing the developers allow you to do. That said, when it comes to Bethesda, who knows what's intentional and what isn't? I had a lot of trouble travelling to Vault 112 due to the fact that I can't actually use a Pip-Boy to see where on the map it's located, since I am still playing as a literal baby. However, I was doing this all as a live stream, and thanks to the help of some people in the chat, and also looking at nearby locations, and seeing where they are relatively to my destination, I managed to get to Vault 112 and trigger the next mission. We start the Tranquility Lane mission, and we are given a massive moral dilemma. We can do one of the following: kill people in the simulation, which would save their lives in real life, but subject them to endless torture, or to trigger a failsafe that would kill them in real life, ending their suffering. At first, I try to do the first option, as killing people in a simulation wouldn't count as breaking the killing rule, as they wouldn't be dead in real life, even if I am clearly doing the thing that makes these people worse off. This is a run where I am trying not to break the commandments, not necessarily do a run where I'm doing the most moral thing. I should still strive to do the most moral thing, but for the sake of this run, if I had to choose between the moral thing and the 10 commandments, I have no choice but to choose the 10 commandments. However, I reach a point where I am forced to break up a couple, but every single one of the options that allow me to progress require me to lie. This means that I would be forced to break a commandment for this option, and there would be no way around it. For this reason, I tried the failsafe route. A problem occurs where an old lady keeps telling me about the failsafe and talking about what it does. This means that if I trigger the failsafe, my character is made fully aware that they will be killing people by doing it, therefore putting the responsibility on their shoulders if they decide to do it. It's quite difficult to avoid this as well, because my character is so slow. In the end, I end up loading an earlier save from when I just loaded into the simulation, and run straight to the area to trigger the failsafe, so that I can trigger it before the lady finds me. This means that if I trigger the failsafe, I can at least claim that my character was ignorant of the consequences, and therefore didn't directly play a hand in their deaths. However, there then came a problem where if I try to trigger the failsafe, it forces me to read the disclaimer about everything it actually does. This forces my character to be aware of what it does before triggering the failsafe, meaning we'd be guilty of intentionally killing. However, due to the way that the terminals load messages, and the fact that each letter loads one by one, I can just spam the A button so that I skip the disclaimer before it even appears properly. Therefore, I can maybe just about make the argument that my character didn't directly kill, but just recklessly made a decision that led to people's unfortunate demise. After all, who actually reads the terms and conditions? So I trigger the failsafe in blissful ignorance. The conversation with Betty right after also implies that even Bethesda themselves felt that being ignorant of the consequences is very possible, because I can pick a line of dialogue stating ignorantly that the people I just killed will return.
I can't reset it, don't you see? The failsafe disabled the security protocols. They're all dead, for good!
Even if it could be argued that my character knew what they were doing, you would only be able to argue that I was an accessory to the killing. And after all, the commandment states, "Thou shalt not murder," not "Thou shalt not be an accessory."
The commandments say thou shalt not murder, not thou shalt not be an accessory to murder.
As we approach the Sky Titan... Okay, let me try and understand this correctly. You're mad at us because we stole a joke from your brain before it even spawned into existence?
Now listen here, you lukewarm knobheads. You should be grateful I haven't sued your asses into oblivion already. I do not want a scenario like this to occur again. Capiche? Now get lost and don't bother me again.
What? You called up?
After finishing the mission, my dad is saved from the simulation, and he goes over to Rivet City. The journey to Rivet City ends up being a very long one, but eventually we do get there. I also manage to restore my health on the way by drinking some dirty water. We arrive at our location and start the Waters of Life quest. We run into a problem where our father asks us a literal baby, to do his dirty work for him by killing the super mutants in the building. Killing the super mutants is unfortunately a mandatory part of completing the mission. We can't refuse to do it because that would be lying, but we don't want to explicitly agree that we will kill them either, because that will mean we're going there with the intent to kill. So instead, I load a save from before I talk to him, as I know from doing some research that if I simply do that part of the mission without talking to the father, it will skip having to talk to him and trigger the next part. One simple solution I have for killing them is just having a follower do it. Unlike in Skyrim, in Fallout 3, follower kills don't count towards your kill count. I would show you evidence, but I can't exactly do that. Many of you objected to my Skyrim video by saying that having followers counts as killing, as it's just as bad. I would say that on a moral level, you are correct, but on a factual level, it's not classified as killing. Again, it's just an accessory to it. Also, I would argue even further by saying that we're not even ordering them to kill, because they're only killing enemies that they are naturally hostile to. I would not be able to order them to kill someone that they don't already hold a grudge with. So all I am doing is having them follow me, and they then happen to be in range of the enemies that they are hostile to, and then make their own choice to kill the enemies. That said, I want to see if it's possible to beat this mission without having a follower, as it does feel like a bit of a cheap tactic. I did notice that once I go inside, there is a turret that's already activated and trying to kill the enemies, and it's also hostile towards me, but it seems to get destroyed instantly before I even manage to reach the area where the turret's located. I thought that maybe there is some way to use it to defeat the super mutants. I noticed that if I increase the difficulty to the max level, although the NPCs get stronger, they do less damage to each other, so this time round, the turret has plenty of health by the time I reach the area. I then use a mix of tactics. One is a tactic I used in Oblivion, where I save after one thing does damage to the other, then reload that save so it re-rolls who attacks. This way I can endlessly re-roll the save so that the turret continuously attacks first, and this makes the super mutants do barely any damage back. This didn't work consistently, however, and so the second tactic I used was to have the difficulty slider move to the easiest difficulty when the turret was attacking, and on the hardest difficulty when the super mutant was attacking. All the while trying to make sure the enemies weren't focused on me so that I wouldn't die, but I still had to be noticeable enough so that the super mutants would get distracted and not focus all of their attention on the turret. Eventually, after many attempts, through using these tactics, and me travelling back to drink water and replenishing my health, I managed to have the turret kill around 8 of the 13 super mutants. However, we have one problem. The remaining super mutants are in separate rooms, one of them being the room we need the others to navigate to. Unfortunately, there is no way to lure the enemies out of the room so that the turret kills them. The next thing I tried was finding nearby enemies to lure, but the only ones that were nearby were ones that would not be hostile to super mutants anyway. I would then try luring some NPCs by provoking them, but they would all stop trying to follow me before I got anywhere near the door. I even tried pushing some through water so that it was harder for them to resist, but once they're out of the water, they would once again run back and refuse to follow me. I tried every single avenue I could think of to get these super mutants killed without resorting to hiring a follower. But unfortunately, nothing worked, which means that getting a follower was the only option. The nearest place I could get a follower was at the underworld, where I can hire someone called Charon. I really hope the comments don't rinse me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. I travelled there through the subway near Rivet City, and entered a mall filled with enemies. This section was incredibly difficult, but after a few attempts, and using the save and reload trick to have a brief moment of invincibility, I managed to reach the underworld, with barely any health left. Once in the underworld, I found Charon, who is under contract to a person named Azra. In order to get Charon's contract, I have to buy it for 2,000 caps. It would have only been 1,000 if I had enough barter, but sadly I didn't. At this point, I have no caps, and the only thing I can sell is the Vault uniform. Azra then proposes an alternative where I can kill Greta, a waitress in the underworld. Obviously we can't do this directly, but even if we found a way to have her killed without doing it ourselves, there's no reason to do it if we can find a way to pick the more moral option. In the end, I go to a different part of the Museum of History, and I take a bunch of plungers and some Abraxo cleaner. This stuff has clearly been abandoned, and therefore I would not consider it to be stealing by real-life rules. Now you might be wondering, how are we going to make 2,000 caps from some plungers and Abraxo cleaner? Well, did Jesus not manage to feed 5,000 people with just 5 small loaves of bread and 2 small fish? For that reason, we're not going to call what we're about to do a glitch or an exploit. We should call it a miracle performed through no one but the power of God. The miracle in question involves us buying an item where there is more than one of it in a seller's inventory. I buy the one that's in worse condition, and for some reason, this causes it to be in better condition than it was before. I have just about enough to buy this item a few times after I sell the plungers and Abraxo cleaner. I buy and sell this item a couple of times, and then it becomes fully repaired. I'm able to sell it for more than I bought it for from this point forward, as it goes back to its normal state when I put it back in the seller's hands. I repeat this until I can afford a more expensive item, and then do the same trick with that. Whenever the vendor is out of money, I need to wait 3 to 4 days before it refreshes, and rinse and repeat. I also bought a room at one of the inns on 2 occasions when the Sabbath day came. I get enough money to buy myself some combat armor, heal up my radiation once, and lastly, buy Charon as a follower. I then go back the way I came, and Charon manages to take out the remaining super mutants without too much difficulty. The father then has to sacrifice himself after he's threatened to hand over the code for the purifier. I then escape with the others to the Citadel, and we start the Waters of Life quest. I speak to Scribe Rothschild, and I am tasked to find something called the GECK. I make my way to Little Lamplight, with Charon killing anyone that tries to harm us. After arriving, I speak to Mayor McCready. I use my speech to get him to let me through. He also opens the gate for the next place I need to go to. I enter the vault where the gate is located, and I free a super mutant named Forks. I follow him, and he grabs the GECK and gives it to me. When trying to exit, I get captured and taken. A man named Going to colonial suit. To the French people that are watching this, if I'm meant to pronounce it Colonel, then why is there an L? We don't say Curado, Cursal, Cur. As a proud British man, I have decided that instead of giving in to your corrections, you can consider your word officially Kernized. A man named Colonel Autumn interrogates me to give him the code for the purifier. I am forced to only go one route. This is because the other 2 routes either involve me telling him the actual code, which leads to me getting killed, or lying to him, which will break one of the commandments. For this reason, I am forced to say a swear word, as this is the only one where I can outright refuse to tell him despite knowing the code. The president gives orders to leave me alone, and allows me to make my way to him unharmed. Colonel Autumn defies him, and tells them to kill me anyway. On the way to the president, I also realise that it's the Sabbath day again. Unfortunately, there are not any beds nearby that I can sleep in. However, the Sabbath day is considered a day of rest, and not necessarily a day of sleep. So for this reason, I believe that it also counts if I sit in a chair and wait for 24 hours, as this is still a form of rest. With a bit of a struggle, I manage to get to the president. I speak to the president, and they tell me to pollute the purifier to kill all mutations, including super mutants. I say that I won't do it, but they won't let me leave until I take the vial. I am able to take the vial without explicitly agreeing to do anything for him, and in fact said explicitly that I won't do it, so this way I am not lying. When trying to escape, my health is basically 0, so in order to get through the remaining enemies, I push some of the sentry bots to where the enemies are located so that they can take care of them all. I then escape, and Forks joins me on my journey. Charon was my follower up until this point, and he seemingly disappeared when I was kidnapped, and since there was no notification that he died, it is safe to assume that he is safe, and living life as a free man since he's no longer following us, and is free from his previous contract. I managed to make my way to a nearby river, and drink my way back to full health. I then travel back to the Citadel with Forks, albeit with some difficulty, because even though Forks is powerful, he was also a useless buffoon who kept going the wrong way. After returning, I instantly tell the truth about the vial, and it gets taken from me. So this way we make the decision not to infect the purifier early on. The Brotherhood of Steel then decides it's time to reclaim Project Purity, and when asked, I choose to equip some power armor. The battle for Project Purity doesn't prove to be too difficult. Because our character is so slow and small, we can only helplessly watch the battle play out in front of us. I played the entirety of this part in 3rd person because of how hilarious it is. At some point I had injured myself, meaning that when the battle for Project Purity starts, our little hero limps towards the enemy at the speed of a mobility scooter and the ferocity of a senior citizen on their way to the farmer's market. Sorry to the one guy in chat for stealing your joke, it was just was too good not to say. By the time we reached the Purifier, all our enemies were already killed by our allies. With us finally reaching the Purifier, all we have to do is input the code 216 and our work is done. This is a very fitting end, considering the reason this is the code is because of the Father's favourite Bible verse, being Revelations 2:16. Repent, or else I will come unto thee quickly and will fight against them with... I paid 400 quid for this. I also decided not to install any DLC, because I feel like it wouldn't be beating the game in its original state, meaning that if I ask Forks to go in there, he gives the stupidest reason ever for not going in. Forks, you will literally survive if you go in there. You're literally making one of us die for no reason. I don't know why Bethesda even made us bother to ask him in the first place. I also don't want to ask someone else to do it, as they die because of me. For this reason, I decide to enter and type in the code myself. And it's worth noting that if in future I decide to try out the DLCs for different games and beat them while following the commandments, in Fallout 3, my character survives even if I sacrifice myself, which means that making this decision will end up being inconsequential should I decide to revisit this game for a Broken Steel run. There is just one problem. Our character is not tall enough to press the buttons on the Purifier. You heard correctly. Our final obstacle is our character being too short to press the buttons on the Purifier. I'm also not able to go into third person and zoom out, because the moment you go inside the room where the Purifier is located, your character is forced into first person mode. The precision of what I'm selecting is also really bad, as it won't even correctly acknowledge what button I'm hovering over. Eventually, after multiple deaths, I drop the power armor chest piece that my character was wearing, jump on top of it, and I'm just barely able to jump on top of the panel where the buttons are, and with literally milliseconds to spare, I press the buttons 2, 1, 6, and the enter button, and successfully finish the game. And with that, our challenge to beat Fallout 3 without breaking the 10 commandments is a mission success, and for the first time ever, we completed the bonus challenge. This run is the first run I decided to live stream. This was done as an experiment to see if it's something I would want to do in future. I ended up having a really good time streaming this, and many others who joined me seemed to enjoy it as well. I had some great conversations with many people who joined, and I am strongly considering doing it again. That said, I don't want people to get spammed with notifications from me, because when I do a stream, it potentially notifies people often. And I don't want this to put people off watching the main video. So the question as to whether or not I'll stream the next run will have to be answered nearer the time. I want to give a big thank you to the following people who joined me on the stream repeatedly and helped me with many of the problems I came across. There is Yeetboy1984, there is Duke Fanshaw 6815, who sadly missed the final stream, there is Hi I'm Piaz, there is Josh M, and lastly, there is this guy, who I am not going to say by name, because there is only one true Lord. Thank you to all of these people who repeatedly joined my stream and supported me. If you also helped me on stream and I forgot to acknowledge you, then I apologise. And thank you to everyone else who spoke in the stream and chatted with me. A massive thank you to Appreciative Viewer 88 and Christopher Feemster for supporting me on Patreon. And also thank you to these people for joining the free tier membership. If you also want to support me, then feel free to head over there, because donating as little as $1 a month really helps. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up and hit that notification bell, as that way you'll get notified of any future videos I do. Thank you so much for watching this video, and peace out.